Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
Okay, today is kind of a special day because it's one holidays in half Europe, I think. Okay, not here in Spain, but yes in Brussels, in France and Germany. So I suppose that we could have delayed the starting of the session until 9:30, but okay, we decided to keep it in the same time. Welcome everybody. You know that this group, the European Alliance Against Coronavirus, is not only a group about clusters. It's very, very important to say. Okay, this is an open group, and the spirit of the group is to join people from the civil society, the social economic clusters, institutions, whoever is interested in collaborate and participate. Okay, so we are working on covering very different topics through these sessions. Tomorrow, this session is, if I am not mistaken, this is the 59. So it's quite a number for now. Okay, but today is a little more special because we will focus on clusters. The proposal is to speak about clusters. Probably the topics that we will speak about are also applied to most SMEs or entrepreneurs, okay? But because clusters, at the end, we are kind of SMEs and very, very entrepreneurs. But we have also our specific problems, okay? And the proposal for today is to share here what is happening in the cluster organizations. How can we help us between us or with others? Okay. You know, for those that could be new to the clusters world, okay, ecosystem, we technically we distinguish between the concept of cluster as agglomeration of companies, technological centers and institutions that are globally, locally grouped, most usually around a region, okay, or a city. This is the natural clusters, and there is also the cluster organizations. Cluster organization is when you put people to work on facilitating that collaboration. Okay, and usually when we speak about clusters, we are really speaking about cluster organizations. So we are speaking about the structures that facilitate those that collaboration between companies and universities and the policymakers and so on. Okay, we will speak today about that, about clusters and what are we facing during this crisis, okay, and how can we help us or how can we try to not only survive but improve if possible. Okay, we here in Spain, okay, we have had some internal very intensive discussion between the Spanish Federation of Clusters. We are meeting once a week, and today, this evening, we will have a session specifically for this same topic. Okay, but the information that we are sharing is that there are a lot of problems in between us, between our clusters, for different reasons, and that's what I will start sharing here. Okay. One reason is that we are mostly composed by SMEs. That's one of our stronger points, because we are an instrument for the SMEs competitiveness. Part of what we do is give them the opportunities by making the necessary critical mass to participate in projects and to reach for the knowledge and give them opportunities that they alone will not have. But at this moment, as you know, there are a lot of SMEs with very important problems in terms of financing, and there are a lot of clusters that are reporting a lack of. Sorry, there is noise from horse. I will put you in silence. Okay. If you want to participate later, you can put your mic on. So there are a lot of clusters that are suffering from lack of members that doesn't pay the membership. Okay, that's important because it's a part of income, the income of the cluster. Another things that is happening is that there are a lot of projects stopped by the companies. We were speaking about that yesterday. The innovation projects, the innovative projects are being stopped in a lot of companies. And that means that the intermediaries, and sometimes us as clusters, we are suffering this lack of or the stopping of those projects. Okay. And another problem that we are suffering here in Spain, at least, is that for example, those that are working for with projects with public administration, sometimes they are finding problems in terms of the compromise with the public administration. For example, if you have that was also commented in these sessions some days ago. You have an agreement in your project to organize public sessions, okay, and there are a lot of cases where the public administration is not being flexible enough to modify the project and allow us to make those sessions through video conference, for example, or through electronic means. Okay, and this is happening also in training. There is a lot of clusters working on skilling, reskilling, upskilling, that are having problems with the agreements because the training that they were supposed to deliver was presential, face to face, and not and they are not allowed to move that training to online. That is creating also a lot of problems. This is what is happening as far as I know. And the question is, what can we do? But before going to the solutions, you know that our scheme is to identify disruptions and needs. So I will give you the floor for comments on everything that that you can contribute, and needs and disruption that you are suffering. Please share with us.
Good morning, everybody. I don't know if I can speak a little.
For sure, Vasco.
Okay, we are more or less anticipating a little bit what you mentioned in the relation with the associates, the companies. In some cases, they just approach us and say, okay, we cannot pay the fee, so we want to leave. And we are tackle this situation with some care, because we understand that is difficult at this moment. So about this relation, I think that we are going to suffer probably even a little bit more in the next month. So in that area, we are facing, in fact, the same situation. In the other question related with projects, we managed to overcome a little bit that problem, but I can later talk about this.
Can you comment, Marek, because I am seeing your comment on the chat? Will you share it with us?
Yeah, Antonio. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to see you again in the morning. I just put it because it was released yesterday by Matsukato, and I thought immediately about the European Cluster Alliance. I wanted to highlight this about the role of clusters. The countries that have handled the crisis well are those where the state maintains a productive relationship with value creators in society. And value creators in society are exactly the SMEs and companies and all the actors in clusters. The biggest value is how we can organize the governance of this. All this value is going through, trickles to the policy making, regulatory disruptions, and so on. So I just wanted to, at the beginning of this, to highlight that exactly the evidence shows that if you have a governance and if you have the public administration working hand in hand with people who are knowing things in the tacit knowledge, which is not being possible to be known in public administration, because there is no, I mean, if you are a policymaker doing plastics, you are not working on plastics, you are not engineering plastics. I mean, not at this very moment. You might have a history, but not knowing markets. So this direct contact, it's linked, of course, with entrepreneurial discovery and so on. But I just wanted to, because if we are talking about the role of clusters in this is, I think, critical and even highlighted by Matsukato as, and just to, as well, then when you read the article, it's not being misled, misinterpreted with top down. It's not about top down. It's again the opposite. It's about bottom up, but simply making the very quick links with. So I just wanted to like give you that the European Cluster Alliance is exactly where the value is created in society, and this links with the public administration is to be streamlined and effective. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Marek. Yeah, the problem is that that point of view is not so general. And for example, I remember now another problem. We are not receiving support funds as SMEs, at least here. We are not covered by the help of the state for SMEs. And I will give you an example. I have at this moment 11 people in my team. Okay, one of my colleagues, my collaborators, have passed through the coronavirus. His father has died. Her father had died. Sorry, and she is not working, and I need to cover her and all the costs of not only cover her but also the cost to replace her, because she's working on a project with the Aragonese government and on skills. All the costs must be covered by the cluster without any help. And that means that that project will be, for sure, will have a deficit this year. Totally sure.
Good morning. Can I say something, Antonio? This is Athanasios.
Yeah.
Well,
Welcome,
what I wanted Yes. Good morning, Marek. Thank you so much for the link. I I have been following Mariana for a long time, and I know her. She's a very very good thinker. I would like to focus on something that she writes, which I have experienced many years ago in a corporate environment, when she talks about the institutional memory loss, that actually by by the wrong type of outsourcing, that there is this loss of institutional memory, which is now the governments realizing. About 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, as part of my research work, I am doing a lot of work with the automotive industry, and there was this incident that people came to us saying that, look, we know that we have done all this outsourcing because this was efficient and so on, but we came to a point where we were we were walking down the corridor holding a piston in our hands, asking why is this designed that way. There was nobody there to explain. And the same thing has happened over and over in several companies, to the extent that we as researchers that have been in an area for a long time happen to be the institutional memory depository of all of these companies, because it just happened that over a period of 10 years, we were the only ones that were able to provide explanations why some things were done in a company. This is, in a way, both tragic and comic. We are talking here about large multinational companies. I will not mention the names. So what I see here, it just hit me now as an inspiration from what Marek said and gave here. And of course, it is related a little bit with the fact that I have been up maybe three days continuously writing this SME proposal that we had for our startup, that actually clusters could serve as this institutional memory depository. This is a different type of let's say mission, which is not a kind of maybe standard way to see it, but we are facing non-standard times. So I think we have to think how we can reshape that mission as really the institutional memory depository. Everything can be, if an SME cannot hold it because critical people have to be looking at other problems, or as Antonio said, they face the financial issues and so on. Somehow all this knowledge, which is not only technical knowledge, but it is knowledge about how things done. It's also about the fashion that you do things, the way, the style, let's say, that you do things, that represents this institutional memory. Maybe clusters could actually serve as this depository for their members, or even for larger parts of the ecosystem. So I think this is just a very raw and rough idea that came to me by Marek's link, and hearing also Antonio's story with his collaborator. And this could maybe redefine or reboost the significance of the clusters. The experience here, it is exactly the same as you mentioned, that when people are facing hard times, it's not easy for them to pay, and even if the payment is very small, in general, to devote resources for the collective structure. Everybody, when the crisis strikes, he gets closed into his own, let's say, enclaves, trying to save his house, his belongings, his whatever. So it's really difficult for them to see, what is there. But by offering, what is the value, I mean, because they have a different set of priorities. But by structuring the clusters as a way of, institutional memory depository, maybe a value can be understood, and maybe, something more effective can come out of it.
Thank you, Athanasios. Very inspiring. We need to think about that. Thank you very much. Comments? More comments? it's the moment to share experiences. Ramon Garcia, please.
Hello, good morning to everybody. But I think, Antonio, you have explained very well our situation. When you have summarized it at the beginning of the meeting, the issues that you are saying, we have problems with our members, the pay of fees. We have problems with our projects, because in any cases we can do it, and in other cases we can change the way of doing. And we are in the next future, we are trying to reinvent our activities to survive because we have a lot of a lack of visibility of how we're going to pass because in the next period, and then we have to try to look for solutions. We think that it's very important that we put in common all the clusters, the situation, and can do any common solution, because I think are very similar all the problems to all of us.
Thank you very much, Ramon. I need to say that Ramon is leading this topic here in Spain with a very strong leadership. Thank you. Horst, welcome. Will you share?
Hello, good morning, everybody. This is Father's Day in Germany, and that's why I'm available today. Yeah, without having a bottle or a mask hook of beer next to me. Okay, I would like to make two comments. I appreciate all those things that have been said, but maybe this is a kind of German view. Well, the one thing is that we experience at the moment that local, regional, and national financial activities, so financial support of funding, etc., seems to be, at the moment at least, hindered by the 7.4 billion fund that is currently being collected in Brussels. I wonder if anybody else has made similar observations, because now everybody is pointing to Brussels and say, well, there's this huge amount of money. Why do you need anything from us? Yeah. This openness, which was there in the beginning, is somehow reduced because it's now so easy to point to something else, although on the other hand, nobody knows how to access this kind of funds. The second part is, and that is somehow also closely connected, we have observed in the past weeks that the politicians themselves, the political decision makers, they are very proactive. Whereas the officers in the administration, they are much more careful, especially when it comes to spending money, because of course they are used to that. They have the order, bring it down to the minimum amount, whereas the politicians, the political decision makers go into the other directions. I do not know if this is something specific for Germany or for Bavaria, or if others of you share the same experience that we have made in the past weeks. So thank you.
You are very welcome, Horst. Yes, I will answer, but I prefer other comments from Athanasios. Will you comment on that?
Yes, I would like to say to Horst, this is exactly what is happening also here. Somehow Brussels appears as a kind of Deus ex machina, that everybody points that it will be there. The politicians are very happy to be large and describe situations, but the actual public machinery is always very careful, and not only careful because in Greece, the signs of the previous crisis have not gone away. There is a very strict austerity measure and very strong bureaucracy on how you spend money, even money that are not public, but because they happen to be, in the so-called general government institutions like research centers. So there is all this. The experience is exactly. Horst described it very nicely. It's exactly like this, and somehow you get the feeling that this entire response has a very strong communication component, as if things have to be communicated and played in the news, and then but not there is no substance behind it because really nothing really is happening. But the media will report that the government cares, or there are some initiatives, and then when the lights go off, the situation does not change at all. And there is always this very rich, let's say, cousin from Brussels that will take care of the situation.
Perhaps let me add one more point to that. That's another experience we've made in Germany. Well, there's a very fantastic loan program. So it's 100% guaranteed. If you get a loan for a specific purpose, you get it, and the state banks or the national banks will really guarantee that to your house bank. Yeah. Then when companies now approach the house bank, they say, well, we need, for example, we have here a company which is producing test kits. They have to pay 2 or 3 million to get some liters of enzymes which they put into the test kits. So they say, well, we are lacking the liquidity and we will get the money, but it won't come back before 3, 4, 5 months from now. So we need a loan of 2 million euros. Then they go to the bank, and it was promised by the politicians, well, it's 100% guaranteed, you will get the money. But the house bank says, well, we do not care what the others say. And you have to guarantee that with your private property. Which makes the decision a little bit more difficult. And in some instances, they even say, for example, you need a loan? How come that you need a loan? You have worked perfectly in the past years. Well, if you need a loan, we have to look at your current credit line. Maybe we have to change the conditions here now. So there is this discrepancy. And I do not know if this, for example, comes from your local bank, from the house bank, as we say in Germany. I don't know the English word for that, the house bank, or if what is said in public is not the truth. They say, well, we will guarantee, but please try to keep it down. And the same thing might be true with the offices in the ministries as well. Yeah, that the politicians say, yeah, we do everything for you, etc. But behind the closed door, they say, well, we have really to reduce all these activities, but we have to be strong on the outside. Okay.
That's the second time that we hear that here. So it's good because you are verifying comments from other participants before. And yes, that's one of the big problems in the funding, that there is a total disparity between what is said at the high level and what is happening in the low level. Somebody from France, will somebody comment? Alain, perhaps? Would you share? No? Anais? Would you share? What do you know?
I'm sorry, Antonio, I just had to rush out for 2 minutes and then you called my name. I took my son to the office today.
Okay.
No. Tell me, what was the question? Because I was, sorry, what was the question?
We were commenting about what is happening for clusters across Europe in terms of problems in the financing, also with the relationship with the public authorities at regional or national level. Okay.
Yeah. So I heard. No, it's okay, because I heard Horst on it and then I missed just the last 2 minutes. So I heard, and I think what I've seen, and I cannot agree more with Horst's comment, is that so everyone's looking at Brussels. Things are moving in Brussels in the sense that in research, for example, in support to companies with the hackathon, but at the same time they're relying a lot on volunteer work, on doing the work. Sometimes I feel of clusters, especially in the hackathon, matchathon that's going on at this moment. So I feel the money is not flowing in as of yet, and there are a lot of constraints. So I couldn't agree more, because the experience that I'm seeing, and it's from the cluster all over, is that all the announcement of this amount of big money that comes in and out, it's not yet real. At least that's what we that's what we are seeing.
And the problem is that that money perhaps will not be directed to clusters, but directly to the SMEs. There is not guarantees on the involvement on cluster on those fundings, as far as I know. Theodora, would you comment on Bulgaria? I don't know if Theodora has heard me. No. Okay.
Antonio, may I said several times, but the public present is not always the same, so I'll repeat. I'm not a member of a cluster, and I've been hearing you from the outside, let's say. So I'm seeing another problem for clusters, which is clusters are seen as the group of people that is supposed to be the arm of companies to defend them, to create solutions, to open doors, and they are. So in this moment, and that happened already with me. I know that a movement of Vasco already helped to implement a measure that was very good to my company and to other companies. It was not on purpose for me, of course. But if the clusters have less capacity to move on because they're also lacking people and all the other resources, they stop to be those defenders. And if they're not seen as being this long arm, maybe companies get out in the future, do not support at all. Now, I assume for what I heard, it's only because they cannot pay. And they cannot pay clusters, and they cannot pay other suppliers, and they cannot pay the salaries on the same pace. So companies are struggling the same way. But clusters need to have the trust of the companies, and that's the most dangerous thing I see in what you're suffering. So clusters have to be seen as getting solutions. If they don't get solutions for themselves, how can them help the companies?
Thank you very much, Aurora. It's very important. I think that we are giving solutions in my mind. In fact, I will share with you that my cluster idea has increased 4 members in the last month. Okay, perhaps because we are perceived as people that are making things. Okay, and I know this is not the only case. Okay, but yes, you're right. We need to take care of that. Veronica, Ilaria from Italy, what will you share?
I start.
Veronica.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Good morning to everybody. The situation. I think we have yes two different situations. I find very well myself into, let's say, into this. Okay. On one side, we see companies that are not part of clusters, that are really struggling to gather information and to identify opportunities for, I mean, can it be funding for simple but definitely necessary liquidity, and or funding for developing the new innovative idea that they are having, pushed from the COVID crisis. Because as I said several times, the good part of the story is that this period is untapping such a huge amount of innovative ideas. So the status quo has been modified, and this has given all of us, and above all to SMEs, the opportunity, the right, let me say so, the right to think in a different way, because the market has changed and is still changing. So they are in the right to propose something, even though markets are led by big companies and industrial leaders. But at the same time, okay, this kind of companies, when are members of a cluster, find a good reference, a helping hand, someone driving them towards the right solution, to find a new idea, or to maybe manage a lack of coordinated and consistent information, because this brings to the problem of, I don't mean fake news, but the fact that on paper there are some measures adopted by our institutions, but in the practice the situation is different. The problem here remains banks that with I called in the chat a fake bureaucracy. They are creating from bottom up fake bureaucracy on everything, and de facto blocking any initiative that was adopted in the rush by the governments. And it was adopted in the rush because companies needed that money in that very first period. And we are now at the end of May, and we are still dealing with applying for funding, and no templates, no final templates are still available to apply. So this is the bad part of the story. So clusters in this have, in my experience, we have increased the trust and the relationship based on trust with our members, and we have created a new good relationships with companies outside, because they have discovered the power of clusters, and now they feel more alone just because they are not part of a cluster. This is my experience.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Thank you very much. Anyone else? It was not planned, so I will share this without any preparation. Okay, but I will share with you. I think it should be in the screen. Sorry.
Yes, Antonio, I can add just a little word.
Please do that.
Considering the trust as a key element and intangible asset for building bridges and this very value connection that also in this article are described, and also Marek was pointed. We see more and more important are the linkages with the civil society and the social companies, the social dimension in the territory. This can help a lot in reinforcing the trust between historical and traditional, we can say, members of clusters.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilaria. This graph that I am sharing with you is about the cluster idea, the cluster that I manage. It was made by the University of Zaragoza, the chair in econometrics, so it's not from us, okay? And it's comparing the evolution of the gross value added between, idea is the red line, okay, during the crisis, after the years after the crisis, okay. This one, the purple line, is a high technology Spain. Those with dots are Spain as global, okay, and the green one is the high technology for our region around. So as you can see, the effect of being in the cluster is very clear in terms of value added evolution, okay? But it's very difficult to explain that at this moment. Very difficult to explain that to the members, okay, to the SMEs. And the reality is that those that are involved in clusters evolve far better in a crisis.
Antonio, I think in this very moment, if you allow me, in this very moment, there is lots of evidence being created of the usefulness of clusters and cases to be collected. So like we have this example from France that they were able to find the solution for lack of polymers, and then they were able to produce because they were in clusters. If we can gather this kind of cases, it would work, you know, as an evidence that how clusters really functioned. And again, what Anes was saying, it's I think it was Anes saying about that the ones who are outside are simply left alone, and they cannot be helped, or so this crisis will show clear evidence the usefulness of clusters. If I may, I would like to refer to this bank and how the money is leaking. Indeed, I mean, first of all, we need to think about the competence Brussels has. So in health, definitely we don't have competence, it's shared. So it's limited. So the Commission is doing as much as it can. But indeed, I mean, it's a question about governance. It's coming back again to this what I was struggling with, smart specialization. Whenever we were going and governance was fake as well. The people were creating fake monitoring, meaning lots of papers. Theoretically, everything is done in paper, ticked. But at the end of the day, no money really went to the companies which were doing smart specialization. Yeah? And we have evidence of this now. But it comes also, and there's lots of studies of Rodriguez Pose and the Regional Studies Association, that governance matters. Huh? Governance really matters, and this is one. Another thing is about this. Because you are from Bavaria. From Bavaria, you have almost no money from European Regional Development Fund. So basically, as Germany has created a massive support program for smaller enterprises for this loan and guarantees, it's stuck at the bank level. And I know examples of it. Apparently, the signals we are coming, and this is disruption in the value chain. The secondary function of financial in the value chain is not working because someone in this value chain is not providing what is supposed, given by politicians, given by regulatory framework, 100% of guarantee. What else do you want? 100%, yeah, as a bank, you have 100% of state guarantee. Why do you? I had some examples that there were interventions from ministries, but you know, it's they are as well. It's about framework, how to work in crisis. There are private entities, so how this money are disbursed. It's about crisis management and things to be rethought. But indeed, in case of we heard we were discussing about the European Regional Development Fund 3 days ago, and you saw in Spain and Italy the national level is still not. I mean, it's still everything in progress. 1 month, 2 months from the moment when I presented for the first time. We have already 2 months. So you know, it's something which to be reconsidered in crisis moments. If these things, shared management or lack of competence at certain levels is functioning. The risk averse of public officials. This is something as well which kills innovation in everywhere. It was in smart specialization. Now it's very clear as well. I'm here now. We have as well the free day in Brussels as in Germany. So partly in private capacity. So what is happening is that you have, well, the officials who are proactive, the officials who are less active. As in companies, in SMEs, you have the people who will get in clusters, engage, organize something, and the ones who will complain nothing is possible, we don't have money. Yeah, it's the same. So governance matters. You can all this structure, but I think what we are doing now is as well something innovative in the public administration, because as Antonio mentioned to you, this is the innovation in public consultation. You know, famous public consultations, papers coming. Today, I have direct public consultation with you every day, and now we need to find out the way how this all signals of disruptions can be materialized in order to create mechanism on reaction from the public administration, every level, and each level, on EU, national, and regional. So from each angle, we need to approach this. So I think this kind of signals is extremely helpful. Money is not flowing. There is a disruption in financial concrete case. The concrete case of this company with with test kits. This is concrete case. Listen, guys, we have technology, we have everything. There's disruption in financial. Concrete case. Can we do something about this? Huh? And how to create the signal that it goes fast, so quick. The system is not ready for this. Yeah, it's not ready for this. I'm telling you. But we might try to change it. We might try to change it. Thanks.
Thank you, Marek. So solutions. We are now in the block of for solutions. How can we change it?
Antonio, good morning.
Kind of... Hello,
can
Paulo.
I approach?
Oh, sure. Welcome.
I think we have two main issues here. In fact, everybody has already talked about. First, it is the survival mode that clusters are living today in terms of their associates not being able to participate, and as clusters only live by the funds received by their associates, it becomes a survival mode, struggling to have financial resources to survive. And the second issue is the fact that we have been pointing quite a few days ago on the discussion of which model to approach concerning clusters, and financing was missing there. And I think clusters, we need to look at these closely, because in fact, at least in my own, I don't have any financial associate here. So very probably we need to discuss how can we attract financial players in terms of banks, and so in order to bring them to cluster realities, to see the advantage that they can of being close to the little companies, to all the innovation that we bring along to society as a whole, and needs to be financed. But I think, at least on my reality, banks are really far away. What can we do in order to attract them to be close to companies and being close to clusters itself? I think that might be a way to bring the finance back to business. Thank you.
Can I say something? Well, there is a rule in the Commission that clusters, and to my mind, this is a misunderstanding about the role of a cluster and its capacity. But there is a rule that clusters can only be financed in a 50% basis. And in one of the last meetings in December last year, we point out that this should be changed, because in fact a cluster doesn't have any kind of, at least in Portuguese case, any kind of a property to rent to companies and so on. So it's just an entity that helps to put the companies and the RTOs to work together and to increase the output of this relation. So I think that also the Commission should revise, in fact, the limitations that they are putting to the cluster work.
This is from the DG Competitiveness, I think, no? Vasco?
Probably, but there is a misunderstanding because cluster is not a science park. They don't have, at least, we don't have any kind of infrastructures that could be used or rented by companies. So, in fact, we are not able to how do you say, to benefit companies in this sense. So maybe there should be a kind of a definition. Maybe Marek could study a little bit that process and see what we can do.
There are clusters
if I may, I mean, it's the issue of collaterals. It's not all clusters who don't have collaterals, yeah? and there are some clusters who don't have collaterals. I think you know, this is this I mean, limitation of 50% you can argue, and I can find lots of other arguments why it should be, but I think here is the case of how to, very good case you are raising, how to increase the capacity of clusters to have collaterals so that in case of crisis you could work like now as well at the very top level. The EU is thinking about mutualizing the debt, yeah, and get bonds in an additional top up to what is collected from governments for the EU budget. So this as well, you could think about something like this at the micro level, the capacity of clusters to have collaterals in order to engage with financial intermediaries. The point of not having in clusters financial intermediaries is a very good point. Because if you had one, of course, this is about trust building, about knowing. Sometimes the small local banks could help because they know they have this tacit local knowledge of how SMEs trustful are. If you have the enterprise 20 years, 30 years in the business, and you know that the business is stable in clusters, and you have financial intermediary, they would not probably make a fuss even of collaterals because all the more so if they have 100% of public guarantee. So very good point. Thank you very much. We need to work, and it differs as well from country to country, yeah? Because you have clusters where you have very much involved intermediaries. I would call Swedes. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay.
There are, sorry, just one moment. There are clusters with collaterals in many countries, and I need to say that in my cluster idea, the presidency is a bank, and fortunately, because that's very important, as you said. We were meeting yesterday about this topic with the presidency, and it's very important to have them there.
Antonio, can I say something?
For sure.
Yeah, what I will say is probably a little bit provocative, but you know, since we are doing some brainstorming, I will say this. I mean, this lack of access to traditional funding, and at the same time, by you know, the questioning by banks of whether you know the companies, they have the capacity or they have to be reevaluated. That is a request of the fundamentals. Maybe it is a good opportunity to introduce or think how this could be done. Alternative means of financing. I am of course talking about crypto, you know, cryptocurrencies, or the way maybe of issuing a cluster-backed, you know, cluster member-backed token or stable coin that would be used in order to respond to the needs and the challenges that are brought by COVID. The advantage of this is that it can transcend all the barriers that exist, national, international, so on. It can bring together, you know, the experience from companies in Asia and how they manage to respond, and government, like what Mariana says in her article, and at the same time somehow generate a kind of collective response that will say that there are fundamental, values. There is fundamental price that it is embedded in the people, in the activities, in everything, and this has a real value that it can be, leveraged without having to rely on this bureaucracy or on this, gaming where other things are said in public and other things are done behind backs. And I think this is a very, mature time now for something extremely disrupting along these lines. Something that would be also backed. It will be able to back the supply chain disruptions and, bring in various institutions without having to wait, for about the central response or the central, banks doing this mutualization of the debt. We are very much watching what happens in Europe. I don't think that anything, no mutualization will happen, because when the opportunity for this existed about 10 years ago, when all the South, the so-called pigs, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Spain, were facing the crisis, the European Union just did nothing to really, respond to this situation. I don't think now that the situation is even more worse because it is hitting everywhere, that there will be any of that, mutualization thing. But maybe there is something, if we believe that there is power and potential in the collaborative, capital, let's say, that exists in the clusters and in the companies, maybe, we should see how and under what conditions, a kind of alternative coin, crypto could be, or token could be, used to finance these needs.
Very, very revolutionary. Yes.
Yeah, I said provocative, not revolutionary, because money. There is nothing revolutionary about money. Revolutionary is to have no money, but no money means there is nothing that can be done. So this is probably more evolutionary, but at the same time, I was really intrigued by what Horst said, that you go to the bank, they know you for so many years, and when you start asking, they say, well, we will reevaluate now. They pretend as if you did not exist, that you just you are like a newcomer, going to ask for help. I think this is hypocritical, obviously, but at the same time, maybe it generates an opportunity, and clusters could take the lead in bringing in this kind of alternative, response.
We need to think about that. Thank you.
Antonio, sorry. Can I add a little comment?
For sure. Go on.
Okay, I think that it is just an emphasis to what Vasco has been saying regarding block exemption rules and Article 27, meaning the 50% funding of limitation to clusters. In my opinion, it's not a matter of collateral, but a matter of analyzing the nature and what is in fact the morphology of the clusters, and as such, I would emphasize that the European Commission, having in mind what is the morphology of clusters, could in fact evaluate for the next programming period this specific element, because I think that this is a very great limitation, and that somehow is limiting our activity. It was only just a clarification. Of course, that might be arguments, but nonetheless, the key element here is not collateral and access to banks. It is a question how clusters are being viewed under the Article 27 of the block exemption rules. Just a short comment. Thank you.
Very good clarification. Thank you.
Okay,
Ramon.
Antonio, just for summarize, I think
we have talked about a lot of measures in the meeting. Very interesting, everything, all of them. But I think just for summarizing, we have to put in practice two kind of measures. One is in the very short time, because I think most of us are working more than ever right now for our communities, and we are doing a lot of things to the SMEs, and with the less resource that ever. We have lost human resources in our organization, we have lost funds, we have lost a lot of things, and we're working more than ever, and we have to survive. And the other, if we need any help of the local authorities or regional authorities or national authorities for doing that. But they are only saying for us we are very useful, no more. No, but they are not helping us. And the other measures have to be taken on the medium or long term that are measures related to recognize the cluster in our activity, and all of those things that were some of the colleagues are saying to consolidate this function and be considerate all of these things. And in the case that we have any situation similar with like we are having right now, we don't have this problem. But I think it's very important to work in both. And most important for many of us for survive is in the short term. Is what are we doing right now? Because probably some of us we are not going to survive, or if we survive, we survive with less resources or a lack of representativeness in our community. And just is one reflection for summarizing.
Very, very good summary. Thank you, Ramon. You have in the screen the.
Antonio, may I add something here? Because you were asking for solutions. Well, it's not a real solution, but it's a way perhaps to get the solution. What we have done now recently is to make a local or regional survey of the problems that the companies in our cluster have. Well, this has two effects. First of all, the companies know that we care, yeah? And this was, well, besides of all the personal and individual phone calls people from our management organizations is doing. The second part is, if we have, let's say, if we complain at the authorities that this does not work and this does not work, they say, well, this might be this one case, yeah, and this is anecdotal. Now we have sent out 400 to 400 companies and university institutes, etc., and we got a very, very strong feedback. Never expected that within a week or so, 20% of them would respond. So we'll send out another one. And the important thing now is that we have a big collection of the different problems, and now we can go to the, let's say, to the political decision makers, to the administration, and say, well, this is not anecdotal, this is not one case, but we have very often a similar problem, and then they take it more serious. And the important part is that it is local or regional, that it is within the cluster, where administration takes, well, they care a little bit more than they would care if we're talking about a survey of all over Germany. They say, well, maybe in northern Germany it's like this, or in western Germany, but here in Bavaria we're fine. But if we're doing it in Munich, then they say, well, you know, these are your neighbors which are suffering. And I think that would be very interesting. If anybody's interested to in the questions we've sent out, they are very helpful. And of course, they are triggering more phone calls, because then we get back to the companies and get more ideas. And in this way, maybe you have talked about that already several times, but since I'm not so often present in this round, I think that is a wonderful tool to get to a solution, not to have the solution, but to approach the solution. Thank you.
You are very, very right. That's extremely interesting, Horst. Would you share some kind of summary of that report or that results with us? That will be very important.
I'll send it to you. It's in German, but nevertheless, Google Translate will solve.
Yeah. No. If you don't mind, please send it to you translate it, but will be better for me. But Google is my friend, and Nina is also my friend. Nina is from Germany, so I think that we will manage. Anyway, okay. It will be very interesting to see to share it. Yeah. Please do that. Okay.
Also, well, we leave it to the participants to share their name or not. And usually, well, you do not want to give out your name, but in this situation, many gave their name and even please call us back, and that's also very interesting. This creates a new neighborhood feeling and community feeling. So there are several aspects which we didn't even think before are happening through such a thing, yeah, because you're getting these kind of service from banks and other organizations, and what do I know, every week or so, but now. It's coming now from the cluster, and it shows a very, very strong sign. Okay, I'll send it.
Perfect. If you send it, please be aware that I will share it with the Commission. Okay,
sure.
Just for your information.
Yeah.
Okay,
perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Antonio, can I share something just to finish? At the beginning, we asked also to our associates for some ideas, and one fundamental was please ask the state to pay their debts to companies, because if the state owns money to the companies, why should we go to the bank to ask for money? And in fact, at least in Portugal, the state start to pay faster the services and the products that they bought.
Thank you. That's very good idea. Marek, you are sharing in the screen. Please,
yeah.
Please tell us.
If I may, first, I absolutely agree, and you are right. You collect you give feedback on reality, and this is democracy that we need to execute. And if there are issues, then complaining it doesn't help. We need to act. Yeah? And then because we are ending, just the document I shared it was one of the studies on geographical impact of the policy measures on COVID, and this is by sectors. So you see that they just analyzed how it can happen, yeah, but it's just the econometrics or what they did, how they did it. But they are mentioning some where in their view the policy measures impacted the most. I would like to draw your attention to this manufacturing, like high, yeah, or motorcycles and so on. You can have it, but then I want to highlight, because our main really goal and help from European Cluster Alliance is to come with real disruptions, yeah? Real, not preconceived. So if he is mentioning in manufacturing that there is short and long-term disruption in value chain, then nothing is better than illustrations where how it happens, had happened, will happen. And I think this is the added value of having the direct contact. And I will link to what I said before. If we state have direct contact to the people who are creating value, then so cut all this intermediate information in a mechanism for alert of disruptions would be the exercise for us, so that this identification, detection of the disruptions are being channeled as soon as possible. And then here inside, we need to find out the mechanism how this can be as well handled as quick as possible. So my call for this is this detection of disruptions, where, what kind of disruption, at which territory, in which, okay, when they come ecosystem. Here we have economic sectors. When we have ecosystem, it can give a structure, but the main point is the selling argument of quick information channeling to the policy decision makers, regulatory, and maybe to the group of clusters as well, who can solve the problem through market measures by its own, without intervention of the public. Just to say so before you start tomorrow discussing on disruptions in agri-food, so that you focus your discussion. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Marek. So it has been a very interesting session. Thank you, everyone. And as Marek just said, tomorrow we will speak about agri-food. Okay, please invite those those that you know on that sector, not only cluster, but also companies or organizations working on agri-food. Please invite them, forward them the invitation for tomorrow's session. Because as we need to be inclusive, we need to have the real actors here, and that will for sure increase the quality of the results. You have in the screen the ECCP topic created for today. Please continue the dialogue there. Okay, thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank
Antonio.
you.
Thank you. Tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Antonio, can I speak to you maybe after the meeting?
Yeah, I will call you back. Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Yes, okay.